Promiscuous boy. All that I know. In Fuentes. I don't know this one. Ladies and gentlemen, what are you doing? How are you? Let's watch the Nick Fuentes interview. Video capture, where is the promiscuous boy? You're all I know. Boom shakalaka. I don't know if I'm live at all. Let me double check, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Nick Fuentes, Piers, Morgan, Daniil Orain. Where is the chat? What the heck? Okay, let's go. I gotta check if the live stream is going well. Where is the chat? What the heck? Okay. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for some reason the chat is not being displayed. I don't know what I should do. Okay, where is the chat? It was right there a second ago. A second ago. Oh, okay. God bless the chat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to watch this banger. Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes. Let's go.
You're a New York Times reader, an NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the lines should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with...
I think that Mexican guy, Nick Fuentes, says a lot of sensible things.
flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things.
I'm tired of this introduction.
Where you come across as reasonable.
But you've
said don't even use the platform. Welcome to speak on live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those of you who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepared for this in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile.
I like the Nick's background. You see he has Christmas tree and everything. I have some ugly photo from Paris that you can buy for $2 on the street. I need to work on my background.
I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, you know, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right.
It's so good, ladies and gentlemen, to be independent. Nobody can tell you, oh, you're being paid by somebody, by some pro-Israeli or anti-Israeli organization. And what's even better is to be brokey. Like right now, me for example, right now, a brokey. Nobody pays me, and I don't even get money from anywhere, and I can say whatever shit I want. That's good.
Right about the two personas. And I think that everybody...
Because whenever I hear some conversations, some political conversations in the United States, they say, oh, he is getting paid by somebody. Oh, he is getting paid by somebody.
Everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following, and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting, and we make jokes, and we play devil's advocate. We play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one, and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
I like that he is edgy. He is expanding the overtones window. And that's great. He's not scared.
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
No, that's bullshit. You see, if he's gonna run for president, for example, he can use the offenses that he said in his favor. For example, he could say before that there are a lot of stupid people in the world, right? It sounds offensive, but he could use it in his favor. For example, I said that there are a lot of stupid people in the world because I just wanted to make people know about this, to bring the spotlight into this, you know, and he will use it in his favor.
Who is?
I guess he doesn't know about this, that he can do it.
Nick Fuentes, tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Yeah, your childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
42 vs 42. Oh, haha, I thought they were interviewing him. I was gonna say they're not worthy of Orain. Actually, I'm not worthy of them. I just have 22,000 subscribers. You know, nothing special. Muka, bro was surprised and mistaken too. Hehe.
Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. You know, my father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other, and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city, and they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have.
Come on, Piers just could go to Wikipedia and read this. Why he's taking the airtime with this information?
A lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family.
I hate the stories of troubled childhood. Whenever people say, "Oh, I had a very hard childhood," like, come on, as everybody else.
And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. It's in the thousands.
You wouldn't exist as
a family in America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
well, I
that's kind of where I came from.
My first obvious question is: were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around at the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers.
You know, interesting thing about the immigrants to United States, the first generation of migrants, they are very liberal. They vote for the blue party, Democratic Party, and as soon as they move their whole families from the Mexico or whatever other country to the United States, they start voting for the Republicans. Nick has his whole family in the United States. Now he is advocating for closing the borders. Like, oh, we don't need any more people. We are fine.
It's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned,
can't even call it the same thing.
You mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So,
yeah,
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have 0 immigrants forever, or even 0 immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for a simple.
I wonder if his grandparents came to the United States legally, especially that one from the Mexico.
Assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one.
If it was really the case, I would be right now in Russia, in a village, and I will be a highly religious person. If it was the case, if everyone is the product of their environment. He is just a left-wing person, this Piers Morgan.
One common theme, I would say, is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. Said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast.
42 versus 42. It's roughly 50-50 environment and genetics. But actually, I think, yeah, humans are just imprint of environments on the human body. So basically, we evolved, right, in the environment. And I think we are like 100% genetics, not 50% environment and 50% environment and 50% genetics. My father was good, they are evil, trust me. Luciano. I trust you.
Do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack
CKCNG91. Remember, Texas, Arkansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, etc. were purchased from Mexico. Louisiana purchase. Louisiana was purchased from France, right? The Mexicans who were on their lands automatically became citizens of the USA. Right. Interesting perspective. I like
attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes. I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think everybody
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the south side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family, being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican in the west side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers. but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns.
They have a knife violence, right? In London.
That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before in America.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. Mm-hmm. When I read that anecdote, it's just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend.
Isn't it true that in the United States, black people can be racist towards white people and it's socially acceptable? Like a white person cannot say to a black person, "Oh, you're racist," but black person can able to say the same thing to white person.
Friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay. So when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying,
no.
well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society. But you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
There They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
I would prefer Japanese people running the society. But Jews are also fine, right? 20% of Nobel Prize winners are Jewish people, but Jewish is not ethnicity, it's just religion. There are many different types of Jews, like Jews in India, Jews in Ethiopia, Jews Ashkenazi. I think he needs to specify. By the way, I need to check the audio of the stream.
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
You just said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, unfortunately, English language needs to be expanded. Jews, it's both religion and ethnicity, but it's not the real situation. Also, the same thing with Russian people. Russia is a nationality and also ethnicity. I am Russian, right? Nationality, but I am not ethnic Russian. I'm Chuvash. All right. I think it's actually funny what he said. Like, black people need to be imprisoned. This Piers Morgan really likes to break the fun.
Hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son
we could
went
go
to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black.
They need to do a reality TV show where they will force Piers Morgan to harvest to experience whatever he's saying. They need to make him live in the O Block in Chicago with black people in these dangerous neighborhoods. That will be funny. Black people will start mocking him, insulting him. I think he will turn MAGA after this.
Black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say?
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
Sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's
shootings.
with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And
Logan, American prisons are terrible and don't work in fixing the problem. As I heard, the only thing that the American prisons do is they turn black people into Muslims. American prisons are very successful in this. OMS 497, I know Chicago. You have Chicago gang, Irish gangs, black gangs, Italian gangs. Chicago is a blues town. Nick Fuentes is a punk. I never heard of Irish gang, black gangs. They don't have enough marketing, I believe. I only know about black people gangs in Chicago. Maybe because of the music.
and that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
I guess US prisons are paradise compared to Russian penal colonies. Blockade. I actually had an interview with the expert of penitentiary systems. Like, she's an expert not only in Russia, but she lives in Berlin, and I had an interview. Oh, what is Russian prison like? Interview with an expert. Olga Romanova. So basically, she said that US prisons are the worst, even worse than Russian. Even though in Russian prisons, they will put a bottle, show it up in your ass, and that actually happens. Yeah. OMS 497 doesn't represent anyone except anything except cliques. Malcolm X was from Chicago. He'd have to find a willing woman. Al Capone was Italian, even the Jewish mob. I mean, all of this is from the past. These days there are only black gangs in Chicago, no? Am I wrong? Logan, well, some find religion and others develop deep hate for society in prison because they are an environment to promote reform. In American, most of the time people in American prisons end up going back because it's the only life they know. Well, in Russia, the statistics is 93% of people who end up in prisons, they return back. This is the statistics. I don't know about the American.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But you spent earlier in the interview,
Especially white liberal women. They are crazy.
you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father.
No, American prisons suck, but not as bad as Mexican prisons and Russian prisons, but they are not all the same. Yes, that's true. So as I had an interview with an expert, she told me that the penitentiary system is not the most important thing. What's most important is the legal system. Basically, if you have good, if the judges abide by the law, if everyone else abides by the law, if everyone follows the law, that's what matters. America is becoming more like Russia in terms of institution, Logan. I'm not sure about this. You're far away from this.
Father, and to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say you charge him with racism.
I think the major problem is that not all people are kind. And I guess Piers Morgan just do not understand this. It's like basic game theory. If you don't have morals, if you're a bad person, you have much more moves than if you're a kind person. You know, and Piers Morgan wants to be kind, wants to be tolerant, and but other people that less tolerant, that are more conservative from other countries or maybe from other races, they will say, oh, we have such a good chance to take over their country. They have a very low fertility rate, so just let's go there, reproduce quickly, right? And then we become dominant in the society and we will just take over. It will be our land, it will be our religion there. Why not? It's not like they're gonna be as tolerant as, you know, less racist and stuff. No, it's just basic game theory.
Racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
I'll defend the anecdote.
Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listen to that...
And by the way, it's not necessary for the other people to become the majority in your society. For example, Bolsheviks, they took over in Russia in 1917, but it wasn't a lot of them. It was like a small portion of Bolsheviks, like I don't know, thousands of people in a country with 200 million population, but they took over just like that. Why would
that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist, it's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
42 vs 42. We are biologically wired to recognize skin tone, hair texture, and nose shape as significant. I'm surprised by the nose shape. What's the deal with the nose shape? Okay, skin tone, alright. Hair texture, alright. Also height.
Yes, you're
That's
being
fine.
malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just
And they
did.
will.
Logan, Fuentes is a race realist. I think he is rather a society realist. People in other societies are not as the same as in the United States.
Yeah,
Especially they are not the same as white liberal women in the United States.
Or afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sitting for too long is bad for health. Now it's time to stand for like 5-10 minutes, and then I can sit. So if you, ladies and gentlemen, were sitting, let's stand and maybe walk for a little.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
Let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank
so I want
you.
to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities.
I think Nick Fuentes needs to go to Botswana, a country with a quite good human development index. You see, high. It's high, but actually it's 111th. Anyway, it's a country full of black people, and it's a democratic country. I heard there are a lot of smart people there, so I want to visit this country.
Cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast, or whether you're on the Mag Mile, or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life.
Hold on. Daniel, I thought if you were in America, you will be like a Bernie, but now you seem more MAGA. I just don't like the fact that black people can tell you, oh, you're racist, but white people cannot say the same thing to black people. It's just mind-blowing. It creates a lot of problems, this situation.
Life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person, and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. They grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person,
how do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference.
Logan, yes, I get that, but only far left progressives say that shit. It's not a majority. Most people will look at you crazy, lol. Don't let the media delude you to what the average American thinks.
Difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
and
just
what proportion of what proportion?
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Is my mic working?
Should they?
Both of these guys are insanely clueless. I don't think it's a problem. I don't blame them, even if they are. It's okay. You live, you learn, right?
What proportion?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60 to 65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying to you is, by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding.
Oh, Nick, why does he have to bring the insults?
Per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for you, Nick.
This guy has a point.
So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
are you hearing it? No.
See,
What's
I think the trouble with your
proportion?
statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No. Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America.
Piers probably lives in a gated community in London. That's 100% so. He needs to move to Chicago, to the O Block.
Where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them. You don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's buying this. This
kids.
Argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger, in terms of probability, it's not even comparable. And I would say this, to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run, Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens.
Are there gated communities in London blockade except for Buckingham Palace and Downing Street? I haven't been there, but I've been to like 45 countries, and in every capital there are some gated communities. But UK is too left these days. Maybe they just cancelled. They made it illegal to have gated communities.
It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid.
London has lots of wealthy, exclusive neighborhoods. Not sure about the gated, though. I thought that was more of an American thing. I stayed in a gated community in Bangkok, for example. Some other place too. In Bali.
All black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable, and I think even black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people...
Asian neighborhoods also should be fine, like Japanese, South Korean. Why not?
People will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board.
Blockade. If you need gated communities, your country isn't civilized. I can think of only maybe Iceland. What else? Iceland, where the gated communities... where they might avoid gated communities. Maybe that's the only country. That's it. Maybe Norway. So we have only one or two civilized countries, right?
I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews, Chinese,
you're the product of an interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake of
Not
argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of
you're
argument,
literally
we
the
could
very
say
person
sure.
you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic. Of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
It's not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a one
really.
drop
You just
rule
keep
thing
saying you
going.
only want to live in a
Kind of.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
and I
got
live in
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing:
Do you have any non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many
because
are
they respect
black?
the honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, "So you use the N-word?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, when niggas are being niggas." I said, "So true. That's so true." So they feel like they're in complete agreement with me.
What does that mean?
It means that even black people know how black people can behave. Even black people understand it. And they know that it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know,
I feel like they've been stuck at this topic for too long. They didn't bring anything new. It's just keep looping over and over.
I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed.
Roy Mayer. Nick is entitled to his views. In the UK, Piers Morgan's home is in an area that is 90% white. He won't live anywhere near a diverse community. Piers Morgan is a hypocrite. That's what I said. That's true. That's true. He needs to go to Oblak or Oblak in Chicago. It will be a great reality show. It's the reality show called Turning into MAGA.
Stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged?
Your mic is buzzing. Sorry guys, it was the fan. Now it should be fine. "42 versus 42. One human race is currently real, the rest is pseudoscience." Do you think so?
Deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally, far fewer.
But how
far
many?
fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
I mean,
don't have
you're
it in
very
front of
big
me.
on. You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific, for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that, but I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from
Okay.
experience.
Okay.
Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on. And I would add to that, you know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
But
Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the neck.
perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're
And then not
implying that
only
white
did-
people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick
Okay.
Fuentes, is of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, I never said white people
of
don't do
course,
it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know.
disagreement.
You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only
To be honest, it's such a stupid conversation. There is not a single interesting perspective. I feel like I heard the same conversation already many times.
talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery.
Daniil Orain, start from hour 1, freed. So they're just warming up now, right? Okay, we will see. 12 minutes left until 1 hour. Logan, Daniel, something important to note, Fuentes is a politician. He's going to change perspective as need to be sometimes. He will make it about race, but won't when he thinks it will harm how he looks. So, as I actually said in the beginning, whatever negative you said, you can use it in your favor. For example, if you say it like, oh, for example, let's say I previously said that all people are stupid, right? I can use it in my favor. I can just say that I said it because I want to change it, because I want to bring this into spotlight. And the same thing about races. It just requires creativity. He needs to come up with the justification on why he said this, you know? That's what I think. So essentially, you can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You can justify it later if you have a good team of experts, you know?
Slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media, on
So
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam footage,
you
on
don't
cops.
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of
And
behavior.
who are narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah,
Are you going to turn this around on me?
You're ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said,
Very clever.
what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said,
Oh, yay
I'm not
also.
saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend.
I feel like they didn't set up the foundation of their conversation. They need to bring some expert in genetics, some, I don't know, expert in criminology, statistics, you know, because they have the conversation about this kind of things, but they don't set up the foundation. And they repeat the same. It's like they're in a loop. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, let's see. We have something in the chat. Hold on. Sorry, guys. There might be some consistent noise. It's the washing machine right there. 42 versus 42. $11. Daniil. Oh. Come on, Mr. 42. But thank you for $11. Oh. Appreciate it. Logan, but now he's okay, I need to see the previous message. But he's I need to see even what you said even before. Okay, let's see. But right now, let's proceed with the video.
Friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why.
But right now, let's... Daniil, something important, but he truly believes race realism, he says it. That's it. But his actual justification changes between a more social dynamic to race dynamic, because he knows most people aren't race realist like he is. Fuentes has very isolating views. But now he is getting some mainstream attention, so he is trying to make his message more digestible. Because he knows most people aren't race realist like he is. Actually, like naturally, people are right-wing. It's because of urbanization, people turn to left-wing. You know, if you go to traditional tribes or, you know, traditional, I don't know, villages, for example, in Russia, like Chechnya, you know, they are all right-wing. Race realism is actually natural to people. What's not natural is left-wing ideology. But of course, there are a lot of people these days who are not race realist because of urbanization. $11 for the number of time zones in Russia. Haha. Quick quiz for the chat. Which country has the most time zones? Don't look it up on Google. But right now, let's proceed.
Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life...
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
Well, you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black? Because you're being very rude by interrupting me right now.
To you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my...
Fred, Russia has most, no? Antarctica, no. Actually, France. They have 12, because they have some territories in the ocean. And interestingly, China has only 1. You know what? Kanye is very narcissistic. I watched his, I mean, not full, but a little portion of his podcast with Joe Rogan. And it was in October 2020, his podcast. And he said, I want to run for president. And I think he actually did, right? Because I was in the shower and I received a message from God that you need to go to and run for president. I was laughing like for a minute because it's such a narcissistic message. You know, it was your thoughts, but you said it was a God's message. It's like so funny. You know, if I had a thought, random thought, and I will say, oh, it was God. I need to buy, I don't know, hamburger. Oh, it was God message. All right, let's proceed. Someone in the chat said that the juicy part of this video starts at 1 hour.
Finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people. They get
Kuhlman, don't quite understand what you mean by left-wing ideology as unnatural. I can see the point you grasp for where agrarian and rural communities have traditional values. Well, the difference between left and right, it's that left-wing people think that all people are equal, and right-wing people think that it's not the case. And so in traditional areas, right-wing people, so this is basically the foundational differences between left and right.
They gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay.
We're talking
He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and indeed what Yair said about the same subject matter. Angel Studio, part of the conversation.
Cultural and political and the reason I've meant.
Okay, so I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the
Holy moly. Or as they say in the United Kingdom, mashallah. The terms left and right come from the French Revolution. Yes. Now, mate, simply curious to understand where he's coming from. Alright, let's see. Someone in the chat said that Piers lost every argument, and he starts saying about Nick he has never been with a woman. You know what, guys? Me personally, I used to look like I never had a woman, but it wasn't the case, you know? And I realized that whatever you look like might not really correlate with whether you actually have women or not. So I don't know, actually, if Nick has ever had a woman, but let's see.
The truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political.
You know what's stupid? That in Germany you cannot deny the Holocaust. I'm not denying it, but the fact that you cannot deny it is it's such a bullshit. Violation of freedom of speech.
Political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it, I can show you, I can name the names, I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
But Nick, what do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect its
I have never understood why Jewish people have so much attention from people. I guess it's just a part of resentment. I personally, in my 25 years in this world, I never even had a conversation about Jewish people like, oh, Jewish people this or that. Like, whatever. What's the issue with them? They run the banks, BlackRock. Good for them. There are smart people there. So
it's democratic. All the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the world.
There is a black professor called Frank Zano, who is another Thomas Sowell, in my opinion, who is raising exactly the same issues as Nick about the failings with black American African communities. Remar. Alright, great for him for Frank Zanu. He is not scared, and that's great. He is expanding the overtones window. I think it's a great thing.
World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip, I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized, and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is the Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied...
The Jewish is Frit. The Jewish is sensitive as it starts from the Bible, and there is endless stuff in history. Although there is different historical organizations based on different views. There is a long history, that's all. So it basically concerns only religious people. Got it.
Studied a lot of their politics. I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul.
Okay, let's keep this conversation about Jews. Not interesting. Or
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking...
Who wasn't back in the days?
Cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because he also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Daniil Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him...
Oh, listen, I understand all of that he's saying, and it's very bad, and I feel sorry for all of this. But Hitler might have made a good art paintings, right? That could be the case. He might have been cool at some period of his history. When he was a teenager, for example, right? When it's cool to be cool. He might have been cool. This guy, it feels like just don't understood. It's like you gotta say, oh, he was very bad, he was evil. He was, of course.
Whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag.
And I'm not justifying all the atrocities that he committed or whatever else like this, definitely not.
You might try asking why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old, so perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
Oh my god. Nick Fuentes said that Hitler was cool, right? And this guy said that Hitler did something with his family. So, yes, it's very sad. I feel very sorry for this. It shouldn't have happened. But like Nick was saying about completely different thing.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years?
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You know,
yeah, you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So
yeah.
maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members
oh my gosh,
were murdered.
Yeah, we got all that. We, you know, me mom, like we're. You know, I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying, me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care.
He finds
I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay.
Monsters can be cool as well, but me personally, I don't like the notion of cool. That's so teenagerish. Like, if you're a grown man, you shouldn't be cool. You should be just confident. That's it. That's bullshit for kids. The cool thing.
And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
I mean, can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow up?
He murdered 12 million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling. And it's cool. And, you know, we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom. And it's like, shut up. Like, you know, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family
you think
if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers. Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very...
What is cool? They need to define the coolness.
Very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein.
We all condemn this, like it's clear. You don't gotta say all this bullshit. We all condemn like genocides and all this shit that he's saying. Nobody is in favor of this, like clearly. But they just need to define the coolness and the conversation is over. But I guess they just need to take this airtime. 15 minutes more.
Who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips. And it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain, right? And at some stage, that brain is taking you off these rabbit warrens.
Is this an interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost a lot of family members to the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives, okay? The Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about the Schindler's List? Tell me about the Schindler's List. Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too...
Oh, he has a point. You cannot be pro-white these days, and this is very bad.
Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Wait.
No,
Nick
it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear any more about me mom and me dad. That's a crock of shit.
No, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit. And you know
true.
It.
It's called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff.
You know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like...
Yeah, he is right. He has a point, because these days you are able to be pro-black, but you can't be pro-white. And I think this tendency is very bad. You can see the fertility rate in Nigeria is, what, 4? In European countries, like what, 1.5? with this tendency, but it's not related, of course, to pro-white, pro-black, right? But with this tendency, it's gonna be very bad situation.
What you
I'm
just
banned
said,
from banking. I'm banned from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to? I do it for money.
And by the
How
way,
much money you
and by
make?
the way,
But I am, of course, very happy for Nigeria. It's good for them.
Company's worth $100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you shouldn't
I'm
have
banned from
been.
processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you, you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened to
Then
you?
don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How
grift.
much money? How much
if I
money
wanted
are
to be
you?
a grifter, I'd be like you, and I would go and say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
I'm not
overplayed your
done
hand.
hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got
crying
three
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more. They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need.
But the problem isn't that big. So immigrants from the Middle East come over, the second generation has a birth rate as low or lower as ours. Blockade. Yeah, you're right. The problem is definitely urbanization and lack of communities. And I think, previously in previous generations, young men and young women, they would make a baby and they will just give it to grandmas, and there were no nuclear families. Nuclear families were the invention of 20th century. Before, people used to live in big families, but these days, because of nuclear families, there are less children, and it's very bad. I think young people of this generation forgot that you can make a baby and just give it to grandpas and grandmas. That's it. But grandpas and grandmas, they want to travel. No. They shouldn't do it. They should take care of children. Roymar, white people make up 7% of the global population. The white population has been shrinking drastically since after the World War II. They have every right to save their culture and identity like the Arabs, Muslim. That's right. And Piers Morgan is against this. You're right, Roymar. That's very true.
To do that? Is it, again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation to saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called The Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth. Right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against
How many
whites.
Christians are
But actually, it's not a problem to be a minority. Bolsheviks proved it in 20th century. It was just a small portion of them, and they, boom, Soviet Union.
Are there in the world? Like me and
1
you.
point some billion,
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
Who am I losing
old
to?
white people,
Who
these
am I
poor
losing
old
to?
white people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it, mass migration. Oh, you're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be an Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white Christendom.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think Israel is doing a very good job. They have fertility rate higher than 2.1. So it's very good for them. The EU, Reumer, the EU was created by Nazis. Numerous books on the creation of the EU gives the background of the EU's founders. 60% were ex-high-ranking masses. I never knew until I researched it. Astounding. Yeah, but who else could do it? Okay, they changed their minds and they decided to create the EU, why not?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about...
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, no, I'm coming
to
the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Just take a look.
That's true.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much, you're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly. So they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic, as you know, to have sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I I don't want to have kids and a wife, you know, my wife. So therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land. But it's going to be.
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groy bets, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually, just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I have no idea what the answer is and you haven't got to answer, but are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No, but I will say that women are very difficult to be around. Okay. So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women, all women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
Do you think
always
you're an expert in women,
free love.
given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This. You know, you're talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So yeah, we are going back to
another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's true.
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics say.
That's what you believe,
They have fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people...
Piers is a type of guy that will never hit a woman.
Say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women. They get
I'm passionate. It's an issue.
You're not passionate. You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex. When are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
Was that? I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them. And that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days.
The failing fertility rates in the West is just a symptom of how poorly Western politicians have failed in protecting and growing Western society. These are not stupid people, but what they do is stupid. Well, I'm not sure if it's a fault of politicians. It's a responsibility of every human. You gotta reproduce, that's it. I mean, not you gotta, it's like embedded in you.
We'll tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads, like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing, you're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess
well, let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up, that's what they want, that they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually, you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was, in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yeah, here you are, 27 years old, and most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really.
Yeah, I'm not with Nick Fuentes in this one because there are a lot of women that's smarter than me that could be good politicians. So why not let them be the politicians or whoever they want? Blockade. I always hear those MAGA folks sing praise of Russia and good family values. What is Russia's birth rate? Well, I know for sure there is a high abortion rate in Russia. What is Russia's birth rate? But Russia's birth rate is actually one of the highest in Europe. I watched the interview with a demographer. I'm not expert in this thing, but the highest in Europe is in Kazakhstan. Actually, a little portion of Kazakhstan is located in Europe, so let's count it as European country. Although conventionally it's in Asia, right? But if we don't count Kazakhstan, Russia has one of the highest fertilities, if not the highest, in Europe. But mostly because of the religious places in Russia. Chechnya, Dagestan, and all of them. Did you know, guys, by the way, that in Russia there is a region called Kalmykia, which is a Buddhist region. It's the only region with Buddhism as official religion in Europe. Did you watch Demograph with Ekaterina Schulman-Fried? No.
Disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you were a racist.
Piers is clearly a product of the environment. London is very left place. Now that I'm saying this, maybe I should go there on a boat. What do you guys think? Would it be a great idea?
Nothing to me. Oh, hang on. Can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label.
Okay.
You said, Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down. Calm down.
Did you or didn't?
Roymar, 100 years ago, the average family in the UK had 5 children. Now it's under 2 children per family. The cost of living was so much cheaper compared to today. A father's wage kept a family together. I'm not sure about this, that it was cheaper, but the fact is there was less nuclear families. Nuclear families, I don't think it's the best idea when there are only men and women. There is got to be also grandma, grandpa in the same place. And it can boost up the fertility rate.
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer something that didn't happen. You said I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You.
They reach the point of discussion when one person says, "Why are you yelling at me? Stop yelling at me." Hold on. What do we have? 130. Let's just skip all of this bullshit.
Okay, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours. What is your view of how the interview has gone?
I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a tough interview. You're a tough interviewer. But I don't think there were surprises. I will not say it was an ambush because it wasn't. I sort of anticipated that you would make some choices about how you wanted it to go, and I was fine with it. So I thought it was terrific.
As a Catholic, you're probably aware the Jerusalem Post has recently called on the Pope to openly condemn you.
And I was anticipating some interesting perspectives, different angles. But it was like a discussion between high school students.
Would it matter to you if the Pope did? He's an American Pope, obviously.
It would be very disheartening, yes.
Why?
Because he's our spiritual leader. He's the head of the church. He's the vicar of Christ. So if he condemned me, that would be very disheartening. And it would depend upon what he would say exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all.
If he condemned you because you've openly admitted to being a racist on this show?
Oh, this racist. I would be disappointed if he said that because I think that word racist, it means something different to everybody. And so I think that's just silly. I think that's just semantic.
Have you ever been in love in your life?
No, like romantically, no.
Yeah, never.
No.
Do you think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are.
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Look, unlike you, I'm willing to be a little provocative. Well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative, and I'm a free thinker, and I don't like to be tone policed. I don't.
Blockade, seriously, neither of them has anything worthwhile to say. Yeah, Nick Fuentes was just radiating the posts from x.com, the racists, and this kind of posts, right? Nothing new. Absolutely. And Piers Morgan was just a white liberal woman the whole time.
I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop.
White liberal girl from Starbucks. This kind of vibe.
Can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think people who don't know you very well will have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same, to tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, let's make a conclusion. So it was a confrontation between racist posts from Twitter and a white liberal teenage girl from Starbucks. So basically this was the confrontation right there. I appreciate different perspectives, like something fresh, not something that I heard a million times. But here it was like 0 calories. So this is it, ladies and gentlemen. We finally finished it. But here Blockadailer. Ah, so your nickname is Blockadailer. I thought it was just Blockade. I think Nick just should come out of the closet. Listen, I just don't understand such comments. People used to say the same thing in under my videos, and basically you never know. Just by the internet persona, you can never guess. By the way, I did like this, but you will never guess that I'm not gay, actually. If you're just gonna watch my videos, you will never guess. Freed. God bless Nigeria. Alhamdulillah. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Thank you for staying with me, and see you on the next live stream in about I don't know, I think tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm gonna have another live stream. So bye bye, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with me. Na 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 na.